Alright folks, welcome back to CB Rebuilds. Today I'm going to talk about what happened with the Gambler 500 and kind of what we need to fix to get this thing back on the trail again. So at the Gambler 500, we ran 500 miles. The truck actually has close to 800 miles on it now. And so there's a few things that I've learned that we need to take care of. On the Gambler, we kind of got the engine warm. It was a little warmer than I wanted it to be. It never overheated, but it could have been better. So one time we did shut it down because it was just hot after we had gotten stuck. So a couple of issues kind of really compounded to make this difficult. So here's kind of what we're going to approach today. Over here, right here, we've got a thermostat for the engine. So instead of running the 195 degree thermostat, I'm going to switch it up to the 180 degree thermostat to hopefully get the thermostat opening earlier, keep the engine a little cooler. And the other thing we're adding is going to be right here. I got myself a Mishimoto cooling fan. This is a 17-inch fan. Previously I was using the 13 or 14-inch XJ fan that came standard. The XJs, with their really wide and short radiators, they have a mechanical fan, and the electric fan when you're running AC or if it has overtemp, but I don't have room for the mechanical fan, so I'm going to put a larger fan that's supposed to be either push or pull. I'm going to set it up to pull, that way from the front you can't see the radiator or see the cooling fan. Another issue on the Gambler on the on-road portions was the sway bars. We didn't have sway bars, and the ride was a little rough. You feel a lot of body roll going into the turns, even on the highway and around the city streets that we toured on the Gambler. So here we've got the rear sway bar and the front sway bar. And for the front sway bar, we're going to add disconnect front links. So we'll have those. And another issue we kind of ran into is this box right here is putting a 4-liter engine where it wasn't supposed to be. My axle does articulate, we are getting the axle to hit the alternator. I'll try to show you guys that damage. But I think a 2-inch lift is going to get rid of that issue. So I got myself a little 2-inch lift, just kind of raise up the front end a little bit. And the last big issue on the Gambler was the lack of 4-wheel drive. So here we've got the axle shaft out of the Dana 44 for the JK. It currently has the Dana 44 in it, but the ring and pinion and carrier and locker are not in there. So I went out and I bought a new axle housing that's already set up. I just don't have time to set up the ring and pinion, get that preload all set correctly. With the amount of time I have, I got just a little bit of time here before the end of the month. I need to get this ready to go for the end of the month. So I bought a pre-configured axle. It's already loaded. I just need to put the axle shaft in, and then move my hub, bearing, and brakes and all that stuff over to the new axle. So it's really good time when we're doing the axle. We can just do the lift because we have to have all the suspension apart anyway, so that'll be good. And then we'll have the function of 4-wheel drive. But I'm going to go a little bit further, since it is the axles are based on the Dana 44 or the JK Rubicon. It has electronic lockers. I'm going to set up the electronic lockers so I can lock the front and rear differentials, and have this thing go pretty much anywhere I want to point it until I change the tires. With all 4 wheels pulling the same way, I should have really good traction, be able to go anywhere I point this thing. Within reason. I can't go up crazy rocks just because it doesn't have the tires for it. So we're going to kind of fix some things that were issues on the Gambler and see if we can improve some of our ride on this truck. So the first thing we're going to get to is the cooling system. So I'm going to start draining that and get you guys in there to see what's going on. Get the hood going. Got my fancy hood prop here. Still haven't found anything better, but this piece of wood works pretty well. So what we're after is the thermostat in here, and here you can see the cooling fan. I'm going to get a side-by-side comparison of why we need to improve that here a little bit later on, but first thing we need to do is get all the coolant out of the engine. So one thing here I wanted to point out is, so right here is the stock XJ fan. Let's call it around 11 inches across the fan blades. And here's the new Mishimoto that I'm going to put in. It's somewhere real close to 16. That should give us about 30% more cooling when it's all set up. So 30% more cooling if we get more of the radiator capacity cooled. It will definitely help cool down this engine. And I wanted to note a couple things. Desi's not in the shop today. He usually hangs out right over here. He's not in the shop, and I'm working on getting my bag of kitty litter to soak up my coolant. But I just want to let everybody know Desi's not in the shop today, and he won't be in the shop now until I get this all cleaned up. But I usually just keep a bag of kitty litter and I throw it out to absorb the coolant if I make a mess like this, or even oil. And then when the kitty litter gets too bad, I dispose of it. But a little more room here. We got the radiator all opened up without the cooling fan. So let's get in here to change the thermostat. So here you can see when I was buying these, I bought one of each because I wasn't sure if I was going to change it to start, and I didn't. But right here is our 180, and then right here's the 195. So this is basically factory replacement. I'm going to go with the 180. It's not like we're using it all to get it right up to temp and all that jazz. We don't need all of that for an off-road rig. But to change out the thermostat, all we got to do is we got one bolt. There should be two bolts. Yep, there's two bolts right here. Well, here's one. The other one's underneath here. We'll get these two changed out. We got a new gasket to put in, and we should have the thermostat changed over. Then we'll start working on the cooling fan. One thing I wanted to cover real fast is that most thermostats, this is the stock one, and this little piece right here is an air valve. It's got a little ball bearing in it, and it was mounted right here. It just fell off when I took it out, which is good. It's out of the engine. And then here's the one that I got as a replacement. And I went and drilled a couple holes here, and when you put this one in, it has has an arrow, and you want that to be at the top so that you can get all the air out of your system easier. I went ahead and I made a couple of holes in this. Again, we're not trying to get this thing right up to, you know, premium operating temperature for optimal fuel economy and all that stuff. So these extra holes are going to let the coolant pass through, pass before the thermostat. So it's just a little something I want to do for this one. But I did go ahead and scrape all of the surfaces clean. I just used this metal scraper and a holder. So if I drop the thermostat in here with the holes up, you can see it fits right in. The next thing we need to do is put our gasket on. So now we got the gasket back in, we got the thermostat back in. We can plug back up our temp senders. Remember this one right here I'm putting in right now. This one's the factory one for the cooling fan and the computer, and this one's for our digital gauge, just so we can get the right readout the temperature, water temperature readout. So that's it. So now we got the thermostat installed. Now let's work on the cooling fan. Alright folks, well it's been a couple of days since I started filming the other parts of this episode, but you know, I got back to it finally, and let's just recap what I've got done. So here on the front we have a new axle installed. I also went in and put a sway bar with sway bar disconnects, so we can disconnect both sides of the sway bar and get us some more articulation off-road. Here on this side, let's see, you can see the breather tube, and I also hooked up the electronic locker. Also, we've got a drive shaft. Called the group over at Adams Drive Shaft. They're in Nevada, and 2 days later the thing showed up. So on the rear here, right here's the wire for the locker and the breather for the rear axle. We've already got the drive shaft on that. We've been driving it around. Made a better CB antenna mount, and this time I installed the spring on it because last time it was on the passenger side and we hit a tree limb and it snapped it right off the quick attach. So no harm really, we just had to put the spring in. Still need to get a ball or something in here so it doesn't hit against this drip edge all the time. On the inside, kind of installed an upgrade. The Willys trucks don't come with cup holders, but I put this marine style on here and put the door cards in. They're a little rough looking, but it does close out the door for now and kind of gives it a finished look. Right here on the dash, I say the dash is really right there. But we've got our control for our lockers. So we've got front and rear electronic lockers, so we can just flip those over. The last piece I need to fix, if you're looking here, is we got the shifter. We don't have a four-wheel drive selector. I need to get that in here because I'd like to take it off-roading, and as much fun as it is to go underneath the truck and turn on four-wheel drive by selecting it on the transfer case, I feel like doing it from the cab would be a little nicer. So that's something we got to improve. So what else? I put some visors in here. These aren't like really expensive or anything. They were on Amazon. They allow you to slide them up and down. I don't know if you can be able to see that. And then I just used the smoke shields. It comes with yellow and smoke, but I'm just using the one. Took the other one off. So at least there's some visors in here to kind of tone down the sun when you're out driving. I think that's, oh yeah, back here on the back of the truck I put my original tailgate on. Not that it's a lot better, but it does have the Willys Overland it does have the Willys Overland logo in there, and then I did grease up these pins so that the tailgate does move really easily. Let me get the prop rod and we'll get the front open here if we can look at all the other work that was completed. Just a second. So here underneath the hood we do have the new electronic fan. It is the Mishimoto 17-inch fan that we talked about earlier. It's all in. I did put the new thermostat obviously in the housing. I've had this thing heat cycle quite a bit. It does a lot better cooling off, but one thing I'm wondering is if I don't have a bad radiator cap. As you can see here, this one is probably, you know, the highest quality that you can get from China, and I think that might be part of my problem. I've noticed after running it just a little bit that this hose, the overflow hose that runs over the bottle, it's just really warm, like it's letting out too early. I just can't imagine we're actually overheating when I'm just driving down the road, and I've looked at the temperature gauge and it's below half when I'm driving down the road. So, you know, I find it pretty hard to believe that we're overheating, especially on short drives just up the road, and then, you know, shut it down, didn't let it sit and idle very long. So I'm going to look for a new radiator cap. They're not very expensive. I just got to find the right style so that it clips in here and it has the right pressure and the right distance, and we get that put on here. That might make the difference. It's not overheating, it just gets hotter than I'd like to see it, and like I said, I noticed that this hose is just sometimes really hot for no reason. I mean, I wouldn't expect it to be hot. I think that's kind of all the major updates. You can see here all of my breathers come up. So I've got a breather, I am missing one of them, but I've got a breather for the front axle, the rear axle, and then the transfer case. They all come up here, and then I had them bend over the brake booster just as a place to put them. So they're up pretty high. If we're in water that deep, we're probably going to have other issues, because the motor sits a lot lower than that. So as long as we make it a brief trip through water, we shouldn't be too bad. But we're trying not to put it through water at all. So yeah, the last thing I'm kind of working on are these center caps. So I was driving the other day and I pulled up and somebody goes, "Is that a Ford truck with Dodge wheels?" Well, of course, these are JK wheels from a earlier Sahara. But the thing I'm working on to make it a little bit cleaner are these. So these are center caps that I copied off of my cap design and I 3D printed. The insides aren't real pretty, but you can see here I got the Willys Overland logos on them, and I just need to get them installed on the wheels. So let's go ahead and install one just to get a look at what that looks like. I know it doesn't really matter which way you put it, but I think I'm gonna align it with the valve stem. I don't know why, there's no particular reason why, but just think that if I align it up with the valve stem like that, and let's go. And there we go. So it's just a little detail, but I think that's going to really snazz it up just a little bit. Gives it a nice piece of artwork, because you're not going to see a lot of trucks with the center cap. Of course, the Willys wheels would have had like a big old hole here for the lock selector, if you had a lock selector on your front axle, but I don't have that because I've got transfer case inside, and I've got the electronic locker for the differential, but that's okay. So I'm going to get those installed. I think that is a nice look. And I think that's going to pretty much wrap up this episode. It's a nice update. We got lots of things done. I was asked to take this into a parade. Not that it's a big honor or anything, but it is cool that people are interested enough to see it, that they asked me to be in a parade. And this is what it's going to look like. I might give it a quick wash, but for the most part, that's what we're going to have. It's going to have this truck looking the way it does. And we'll go through the parade. I did make a flagpole for it. So here I did make a flagpole that drops into the pocket. And you can see this hole right here I just covered up. And it has a wing nut. So the pole comes right down here on the front side. And then you put the bolt, there's a bolt that's attached to the flagpole, and you wing nut it on. So you can do the wing nut right here. And then when you're driving, of course, all of your force is going that way with the flag on the back. So I've got that as well for the parade. Not that we may not need it, but I thought it'd be a nice touch if we want to add it. So thanks guys for watching, and hopefully I'll have some more updates on this. And if everything goes as planned, I will have taken this off-road, and we can see how that went. I hope to give you guys some updates, and thanks for watching.